All right, guys, coming at you today with another confusing mind twister of a video because why not? Okay, because lately I've been meditating and thinking a lot about, what I call the wheel of time in my NDE and what that means. And I sort of received some newer downloads regarding incarnation and consciousness and how that process plays out. Before I get into that, though, uh, I've been having ridiculous synchronicities lately. And by the way, I don't think a lot of people associate synchronicities with the Mandela effect, but I actually think it's absolutely related. And what I mean by a synchronicity, I'm sure it happens to you. It happens to so many I know. And that is where you would, for example, think of something or you would say it out loud, and then you would see an advertisement for that same thing you're thinking about, mind you. That happened to me countless upon countless times. And people you communicate with bringing up subjects that you just discussed or you just thought about. This has become a daily occurrence, and I honestly don't know what to think of it. If it is positive, if it is negative, if it is neutral. At sometimes it almost feels as if though there's actors, like there's actors brought before you in this like Truman show like setting, and it sounds ridiculous and it's very hard to explain, but I don't know how else to say it. I have a lot of people that would agree with me on that. And so I was in a concert yesterday. It was a charity show for autism or something. I go to a lot of concerts, especially lately. And I listen to a lot of stuff, every genre. And I put on this unknown band, newer, like they only have 8 songs out. They're not very well known at all. Even in the subgenres of metal, you have tens of thousands of bands, okay? And at any given time around the world, you have around 5 million active bands touring, recording, etc. There's 25 million people who have their music on SoundCloud, including me. There's just an overabundance and oversaturation of endless amounts of music. Okay. So I go over there and I'm looking for a drummer. So I'm talking to random people because me and my friend, we need a drummer. So our online ads are not working out very well. So I'm going to have to go out to the front lines and talk. And I just talk to these random dudes. And on the way there, I listened to this particular band. Not only did I listen to them, I shared that band with a friend of mine. And we're just casually talking about different bands. And he brings up that band, that same band that I was just listening to on the way to the venue. Now, granted, if it was Guns N' Roses or Metallica, that wouldn't be unusual whatsoever. I get that. This unknown thing that is extremely exclusive in very niche circles of subgenres of metal where you don't have people even remembering such names. Yet he brings it up. And the way he looks at me was strange too. I didn't say anything. I didn't tell him, I didn't say, what the hell, I was just listening to that. on the way here to this venue. I didn't bring it up, but I certainly told my one of my best friends the day after. But my point is that this goes along the same lines as the 666s and the 911s that I constantly see still years later, all the time, every day. Like I said, I don't bring it up much anymore because it's become so redundant, just so automatic that I don't care anymore. It's just another 666. So whatever. Anywho, um, let's talk about incarnation for a little bit. Now, there's a guy called Morg Official, right? I share his channel a lot here, and he has some really interesting ideas. He's what's called a Hyperion, where, don't even ask me. It's even more confusing than my stuff. But you got to check out his channel to understand what that means. But he basically sees everything as like an eternal mind, right? As opposed to like a soul. Everything is mind or thought, which, yes, it kind of is. But he has an interesting take on reincarnation himself. And he says it depends on your own soul's development as to whether you're forced or choose to reincarnate. I don't want to use the word forced, but he says it depends on how conscious and self aware that particular soul is when it passes on. He has a specific term for it too. It's something like the death tunnel or the death wave or something, where you're just sucked into a vortex and you're kind of in a dreamlike state and you're barely conscious and you don't know what's going on, and they just like kind of go, here you go, just go into this body. I disagree. Sorry, man. Okay, no, I don't entirely disagree. I disagree to a certain extent. I think that is the case for animals, for insects, for beings that are totally not self aware. And by the way, I don't think that all animals are not self aware, not by a long shot. I think dolphins, elephants, and many others do have a sense of self awareness. So they might be completely excluded from that category. We completely underestimate the power of an animal, ladies and gentlemen. They're not dumb, okay? I'm just saying, I'm generalizing here. Your average monkey, okay, who is really is not self-aware. I can see that particular soul being sort of in a dream state, sucked into a vortex, brought to the light, sort of just brought back down in order to progressively expand and grow until they reach a point where they are self-aware. And that the moment that happens, the very moment that happens, that's not going to happen to you in the afterlife. Okay, first of all, the afterlife is not a dream-like dreary state. Okay, not from my experience. The afterlife is 100,000 billion times more real than this fake ass place. Okay, so you're not walking around in this dreary, dreamy, like lucid state. You're hyper aware. You're a million times expanded. It's inconceivable for me to think that that type of consciousness would not be aware of their next incarnation. I was so much more expansive in my near death experience. I was a million times what I am now, a billion times. And for me to be there and not be aware of what I going to choose next, like I've totally felt like I had free will where I was. I totally felt like I was completely free, actually. And nobody was able to coerce me or manipulate me or anything. But it's not like I totally have 100% all my choices. Obviously, I don't because I was sent back here, right? So it's not like you have total authority over everything. I think you do reach a point where you do. But my point is that I believe that most souls are very much aware of how they reincarnate, where they incarnate to, and the reasons that they do it. That's not to say that there might not be some elements somewhere in the astral that might be manipulative or coercive or deities or beings that play mind games. This is all completely feasible and possible. Like I kind of jokingly posted about the praying mantis in the community post, but no, I do think that there's this very extremely evolved deity that is like a praying mantis that is kind of like one of the head overseers of this realm, actually. So it really depends. It's individual based from person to person, every soul unique, how their journey is going to play out. And why they incarnate, right? So that's a really complex topic in itself. Let me just give an example. So once a soul does reach a state of, self-awareness, it's conscious of itself. Um, it has qualities and attributes that are naturally built into it, straight from the source. Like, for example, some souls are inclined to be warriors, other souls are inclined to be healers, you know, musicians, artists, it goes on and on and on and on and on, every type of thing you can imagine. And when it observes the wheel of time, like Earth, for example, it observes it on a macro scale and a micro scale before it chooses to incarnate. And for example, it would match or uh, I call it quantum oscillating harmonics, where it would align quantumly with an avatar or a body that is conducive to that soul's character, right? So it sees that body as optimal to what it wants to learn and expand in itself. Now, you might ask yourself, why can't the soul just learn this stuff up there? Why can't it just be a healer and play music and do that? They do. It does do that. Absolutely. And some souls never come here ever. Some never incarnate ever for forever to any world, and they do just that. But some, they want to experience things more subjectively. They want to experience things more intensely in terms of, like physicality, where, a healer that is a natural healer as a soul might be inclined to incarnate into what would become a surgeon or what would become a nurse or what would become a doctor, for example, because uh, learning healing in a difficult environment, in a difficult setting like that, does cause expansiveness and growth. It does raise your own self-awareness, first of all, and you take those skills with you. Like, nothing is lost. No second of your life is ever lost or forgotten at any point. So it takes that experience with it. Let's say, for example, like it's a starseed or an ET who, over time, for whatever reason, has lost some abilities. They are healers, for example. They might actually leave their home planet and come here for a lifetime as a doctor to sort of reignite that passion, right, from a different experience, reignite that spark of, healing within themselves, and then they would come to, in many cases, they would be in a state of suspended animation. They would come to in their home world, and those skills would be embedded in it for their original world that they can now use again. Because things happen everywhere. People lose passion, people lose desire, and aliens too. They need to remind themselves of what is important. And as evil and screwed up as this place is, it can be very helpful in that regard in terms of the learning process and just reminding the soul of, for if it's an alien, be grateful for where he came from, you know? But yeah, so an avatar or a soul would look at, that body that it quantumly oscillates with the most. It sees into the oculus of the soul and every branch, every conceivable um, path that it would take as well, and the possibilities of every choice that it would make. Um, and the goal of the soul, if it has a specific goal to be a doctor, for example, it's going to incarnate into that body and use it and do everything in its power to align itself with that goal of becoming a doctor. But is 100% that it's going to become a doctor? No, of course not. Because the body itself doesn't belong to the soul. It actually um, belongs to the astrological signs and to the earth. And the astrological signs are living deities that are character types of group avatars. Let's just call it that. I know it's a stupid term, um, but for example, Mars, and it's not just astrology; it's also planets, and all of these are living things, and they have these sort of collectives on Earth, for example, collectives of character types, avatars, which sort of more align to their own personality. So, in that sense, astrology is very real. And that doesn't mean that it's all linear, like every person that's aligned with Mars is a warrior type. No, it's completely interwoven like a spider web, meaning that they intersect in every direction imaginable. So, okay, wow, 18 minutes, geez, really getting ahead of myself here. But keeps messaging me. But yeah, so the avatar and the brain and a lot of the character too actually belongs to the astrology and the symbols. So in each of these stars, each of these astrological signs have a secret symbol, geometric shapes. And when a soul incarnates, it superimposes these deities. They observe the incarnation. They superimpose those shapes into the soul as it goes into the body, uh, to sort of be an adversary, but also um, to be a helper as well. So there's kind of two opposing elements inside the body, where one will take you this way, one will take you to the positive polarity, one will take you to the negative polarity, but both are equally feasible and equally possible in our character traits of that particular astrological sign. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, you have the Egyptian deities that I spoke about in the previous video, who are very much sort of hijacking. I don't like that word, but I don't know what else to use. They rule over this realm. Um, they are the principal rulers. Egypt never fell, it was never destroyed. They just went underground. Those deities are still here. and they still rule over this place from the astral and dream worlds. And they harness our collective experience here and sort of use it as their own experience. So, all like they take all the stars, all the collectives of the avatars, all of their experiences, they internalize them. And when they wake up, they become more powerful gods, right? So in our case, it will probably be Horus. That can change at any time. But they literally, that's how they siphon energy. They siphon energy through our experiences. Um, it's really weird. It's really complex, I know. Um, but another thing to keep in mind is that if Horus does wake up and the capstone of the Great Pyramid is illuminated, that is the end of this cycle. That is the end of this sort of particular program. Uh, and it would have to essentially start again or be something completely new. Um, but yeah, I'm not going to get into that again. I said what I wanted to say about what I feel about incarnations and souls and that whole process, and I'm going to leave it at that. In terms of the next live stream, guys, I don't know. I really don't know. I have a lot going on, so hopefully we can do one soon. And I'm going to leave you at that. Let me know what you think um, about incarnation in the comments below.